you just send him the information, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay, so first I'd like to introduce Asif's executive director, Tawab Hamidi. We'll go to him first, where he can explain and give some background information for Asif, and then I can talk about the purpose of our space today, and then we can hear from our great panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you all for attending. Assalamu alaikum. I hope everybody's doing well. So a little bit about ASIF. ASIF, which stands for Afghan Sustainable Economic Foundation, advocates for the Afghan people in a couple of different ways. We try to raise awareness and educate the masses as well as policy makers on key issues that's affecting the the civilian population of Afghanistan. Oh, great. We've got Dr. Aziz. So, and that's what we've been doing historically, focused on education and policy recommendations. In addition, we've also started working on innovative models of charity to help empower Afghans economically in a sustainable way mainly by focusing on providing them jobs and skills. So, of course, we are a nonprofit, non-political organization. We do not take sides with any group, and our main priority has been and will always be the Afghan civilian people who are in need. With that, we can proceed and um, start to introduce our guest speakers. So, fortunately, we have four great guest speakers today. I'll start off with Miss Victoria Fontan, who is the I hope I pronounced that right. Who is the provost for Afghan University of Afghanistan, operating from Qatar uh, right now. She's a scholar and administrator with demonstrated history of working in higher education and humanitarian development sector internationally. She has diverse experience in nonprofit organizations, scientific capacity, cooperation, peace and conflict studies, intercultural communication, politics, and political science. Our next speaker is Adina Ranjbar. Ms. Adina Ranjbar is in Afghanistan. She's an architect, social activist, who is also the executive director of OTUF Humanitarian Services Organization. And then we've got Dr. Maiwan Ahmadzai, who's a radiation oncologist based in Zurich, Switzerland. Dr. Maiwan and Dr. Khalid Zadran recently initiated a program that aims to deliver lectures to female Afghan medical students online. And in a short time span, they recruited some over 200 medical students and physicians who are now giving lectures over Zoom to Afghan students in Afghanistan. So, and then of course we've got Dr. Azizullah Amir, who is who's a cardiologist and an associate professor, and more importantly, he's the founder of the Afghan founder of Moray University, the president and founder of Moray University, which has thousands of students in Afghanistan and has been operating for many years. Beautiful campus, and those who've actually visited Moray University were in awe of what they've been able to achieve. Of course, we'll hear more from from him about Moray University when we get there. It's an all-female education complex. So with that, we'll hand it over to my colleague Michelle, and then we will discuss with the different speakers in a uniform fashion. Thanks. Michelle?
Thank you very much. My name is Michelle. I'm the outreach director at ASIF. And today we're looking to discuss higher education opportunities for women in Afghanistan. As mentioned before, the purpose of this space is to be non-political. I think as far as the current situation, we are aware that higher education has been restricted, or there's been a ban on higher education for women. And what we're looking to do is understand what the current situation looks like, what opportunities are being offered, with some of these institutions and organizations. What do they wish they could do? What opportunities have they been able to offer Afghan women? I think we all agree that education is a fundamental right. So we're looking to get to know and understand what is available. What the hope is for this to be informative for the audience, both for those people who are in Afghanistan as well as other people who are trying to better understand the situation. Of course, none of this would be a long-term solution. Ultimately, I guess would be the responsibility of those in charge to fulfill this gap that exists right now. There's a multitude of reasons why it's not a long-term solution, but we'd like to essentially see what is happening and what can happen during this time. Brother Tawab, would you like to go to our first speaker? I think we were going to Dr. Amir.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Amir. We were on mute. I thought I may have mixed up the lineup. I thought it was Victoria, but nevertheless, we can start off with Dr. Amir. Dr. Amir, thank you for joining, and it's a pleasure having you over. I've heard great stuff about Moray University. I'd love to visit it someday. I believe you guys are one of the few female-only educational complexes in Afghanistan, and it goes from K through all the way into college. So if you can give us a little information about Moray University to start off with, and then we can go from there.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Dr. Aziz Amir from Mora Educational Complex. I'm the founder of the Mora Educational Complex, and it is not only university, it is a complex of kindergarten, nursery, primary school, secondary school, high school, Institute of Health Sciences, university, hostel, all for women and by women, all in the same compound, same complex. And all the staff from A to Z are female, and all the students are also girls and women. Only until class 5 of the primary school we have boys as well, but later on it's only for women. uh, Mora Educational Complex is established in 2016, almost 7 years ago. And unfortunately, now all of these sections are closed except for the Midwifery Institute, which is going on.
Dr. Aziz,
If
which part is still going on?
Midwifery Institute
Oh,
of Health
good, good.
Sciences,
That's
Midwifery.
so important to know. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is a 2 years program, and it is licensed under the Ministry of Public Health. So they have allowed us to continue, uh, and we have other departments closed for now. So we are in negotiation with the Ministry of Higher Education, and we are providing several reasons that there is no reason for Mora to be closed, because it is all according to the policy that they announced. This is female only. This is a place where all the staff, even the gardeners, the farmers, are female. So why it should be shut? So we haven't heard and haven't received any reasonable response from them yet.
I think we somehow may have lost Dr. Amir. He has choppy internet. So, not to waste time, Michelle, if you wanted to actually start off with move on to Victoria, and then as soon as we get back, Dr. Amir, we can have him next
Sure.
in the lineup. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. So, Victoria, if you could help us maybe introduce AUAF and start as an organizational introduction, and then we can sort of get into what the current situation looks like. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining this important space. And thanks for ASF for organizing it. As we know, there is no sustainable economy without education, and I think that this is really why we are all here tonight to listen to some solutions and also maybe join efforts to continue the education of women in Afghanistan from a purely humanitarian and apolitical perspective. So AUIF was established in 2006 by international treaty between the United States Department of Education and the Afghan Ministry of Higher Education. Our mandate is to provide liberal arts style education to Afghans from all different provinces and all walks of life. Very often in Afghanistan, interlocutors think that this is an elite university for only the few that can afford it, but actually before August 21, more than all our students were receiving at least 90% financial aid, and we're coming from 34 provinces. So right now we have 905 students. We are an online university educating from a global perspective. We have 4 programs. A BA in information technology. We have a very strong law program that was developed by Stanford University for and with Afghanistan. We've got 11 textbooks that have been developed specifically for the Afghan context. Actually, we have 12 now textbooks. Then there is the business program, which is accredited by ACBSP, one of the top accreditors in the world. And then we have political science and public administration. We're accredited by the Afghan Ministry of Higher Education, and we also are seeking a dual degree accreditation with Bard College in the United States, so that which is in the works. It's going to take a couple of months for it to be active, and this means that our students who are already pursuing our dual degree program and curriculum will have an American accredited degree by the end of their studies at AUIF. Our studies are completely free of charge. And right now, so as I said, we are teaching online, but we also have 100 students here with us in Qatar. We were welcomed by the Qatar Foundation on the Education City complex. This is so we are sponsored by the Qatar Foundation and financed by the Qatar Fund for Development. Many governments and many political actors across the world have made many declarations about how important education is in Afghanistan, but only the government of Qatar has chosen to generously host us. And so we have 100 students, the majority of which are women, and we're expecting another 100 next August. What's really warming my heart tonight is to see Dr. Aziz here with us. Back in August, when our women students were not allowed to board their plane to Qatar, Dr. Aziz gave us space at the Mora Educational Complex for some of our students who were on their way to Qatar and who are now in Qatar. And I think that what's really important for educational institutions is really to work together to ensure that we support each other and that we continue providing education for as long as we can. So I've just introduced the university. I've got a lot more to talk about. We are thinking about we are developing a consortium of higher education actors providing education to women in Afghanistan, whether face-to-face or online at present. And we have many organizations that are joining efforts with us, but maybe I'll talk about that later. For now, 905 students. We are going strong. We're not stopping our efforts and our education for Afghan women everywhere in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Definitely great to hear about what your organization is providing for people and the efforts. I think we can go to Dr. Amir and to finish the introduction of Mora University, and then we can go to
Michelle,
my one brother afterwards.
so
Yes.
we're done with AUAF, or are we going to recircle back later during Q&A?
Yes. Yeah, we can circle back to discuss further discuss some of what they are working towards and some of the difficulties and continue that conversation.
Sure. Okay. That's fine. So now that we've got Dr. Aziz back with us, Dr. Amir, we can proceed. Dr. Aziz, if you can unmute yourself and essentially carry on from where you last left off, I'd appreciate it. And just to recap for those who weren't here, you said that the midwife education sector of Mora University is continuing because that falls under the Ministry of Public Health, but the other branches are currently closed. And so I just wanted to give that update, but please carry on.
Thank you. I was talking about the programs that we are having and the challenges, the current challenges of closure of all of the universities, while Mora has been an exception. And we discussed this with the Ministry of Public Health that we should be allowed to continue our education so that the time is not wasted, and the girls who are doing their medical degree they can continue their classes, and they just keep telling us that wait, and it will be there will be some news soon or later, but just there is a hope that they will allow us to continue. 2 weeks ago, we had a delegation from the Ministry of Higher Education to Mora, and we showed them all around and all the system that there is no man, and there shouldn't be a challenge for the current government. They say that okay, this is a good model, and we want this to be a role model for other universities, and we want to discuss this on the top level. But no one knows what will happen tomorrow and what is their final decision. However, if you want me to discuss the question that you have shared, I will talk about it. Otherwise, if you have any questions, I can answer.
No, please go ahead, Dr. Amir. Feel free.
Okay, so the opportunities for women for the moment, as you've asked in your email to everyone, I think the only hope of every Afghan is for the restart of the all women education. Like women, every Afghan girl should be allowed. That is the main goal and main wish of every Afghan. But when we talk about the current opportunities regarding the what we can do now, I think there are two main issues. So number one, the advocacy, the lobby. Every person who is thinking of Afghan women in every place of on
I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing Dr. Amir. Michelle, are you having the same
this earth,
experience?
whether
Yes,
inside
it's
Afghanistan
breaking
or
up.
outside.
Dr.
So
Amir,
the
if you
word
can hear me,
we have challenge with electricity and the know-how of the usage of technology among families, students, and even the teachers. Challenge for the online system.
Dr. Amir, we're not able to hear you. I think you may be having some internet issues. It's ironic that you were talking about electricity and the lack of infrastructure, and your internet got uh, disconnected. Uh, Nevertheless, Dr. Aziz, can you hear us? But I guess just to do a quick recap of what Dr. Aziz was saying, for those who did not hear, he was basically requesting everybody to continue to push for women's education at whatever level we can, and the challenges that they're currently facing, which also includes infrastructure, which includes electricity, uh, internet in this case, and of course funding. Um, Dr. Aziz? Yeah, I can now hear you. We weren't able to hear you in the past minute or so. Dr. Aziz, if you could possibly change your location, maybe that might help.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Dr.
Hello,
Aziz,
can you hear me?
we can hear you now. Please carry on, but we did not hear the
Can you
last two
hear me?
minutes. We can hear you. So, Michelle, just to make sure we have continuity, perhaps we can, if you could send a message to Dr. Aziz that he's having a bit of an internet issue, and we will recircle back to him.
Sure, sure. Sounds great.
So with that said, we'll move on to.
Hamid Yusuf, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Dr. Aziz. Can you hear us? Dr. Aziz? Okay. We will. We're hoping that the internet.
I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
I. If you're not able to hear me, then I'm
Hello?
not sure if I say anything, it'll make much of a difference.
Hello?
Yeah, I did send him a message though. So whenever the internet, I guess, kicks
I
back
can't hear you.
in.
I don't know what the problem is.
Okay.
So maybe we can come back to Dr. Amir.
Sure. That's fine. Let's move on. Just for feel free. Did you want to have our discussion next with Ms. Rajbar or Dr. Maiwan?
Okay, I think I had said earlier we can go to
Hamid Yusuf, can you hear me now?
Dr.
We
Ahmadzai.
can hear you, Dr. Aziz, but I don't think you're able to hear us.
So Dr. Ahmadzai, if you would like to introduce your efforts and what your organization is working on right now, it would be great to hear from you.
Thank you very much, dear Michelle. Thank you very much to Objan. We are very grateful and want to thank especially the ASIF organization for giving us the platform and the chance to introduce our program. My name is Marwan Ahmadzai. I'm a resident in radiation oncology in Zurich in Switzerland. And today I would like to talk about this online lecture program we have initiated for Afghan female medical students. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Khalid Zadran, who's an Afghan neurosurgeon working in Pakistan, who at the end of December of last year actually initiated this program. And I think it was within 24 hours when I contacted him and told him, okay, let's do something out of this. As we all know, unfortunately, by the end of the last year, the current government announced that they're going to ban girls and women from university completely. And we were quite frankly shocked because on the one hand we were hoping that they might actually open the schools for girls from grade 6 upwards, and somehow we were truly shocked when we realized, okay, that this is going actually in the reverse direction. And what Dr. Zadorn initially did, he contacted, because of his work, many patients are referred to him for spine and neurosurgical treatments from Afghanistan. Through this, he has a wide network of colleagues at universities, but also clinical practices. And he had asked the medical students and the lecturers in Kabul, in Mazar, in Herat, Jalalabad, to actually organize themselves as quickly as possible into WhatsApp groups in order to have a secure channel of communication with the female medical students who are interested in continuing their education. And initially, this was at the beginning of January this year, there was a group of roughly 40 to 50 Afghan physicians, mainly based in Pakistan and Afghanistan, with the aim actually to making sure that we were somehow able to support these girls, because it was clear to us that we cannot just from one day to another day replace the whole curriculum and the whole university. But what we want to make sure that the students stay close to their books, stay in touch with the learning material. And in this very depressing situations where many of them are faced with depression and other difficulties, that they somehow still see that somebody cares and that we want to support them. At the beginning, there were roughly 200 or 300 students who were interested in that, and by now there are 2,600. They are organized in different WhatsApp groups protected by a gatekeeper to make sure that the personal information is not somehow abused or made publicly accessible to anyone. Based on these preconditions, we agreed actually to make sure that we somehow add more colleagues into the faculty team, or more physicians who are ready and willing to give these online lectures. And by now, using our personal accounts on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, we're able to recruit more than 200 colleagues, mainly from Europe and United States. It's roughly 100 physicians and 100 medical students at the final stage of their studies. And what we are currently doing, we are delivering 1 hour of medical lecture per day from Monday to Friday, in some cases also at the weekend. So sometimes it's just 5 times a week, sometimes also 7 times a week. And the lectures take about roughly 45 minutes, and then we have half an hour for the discussion. And if we just look at the physical realities of Afghanistan when it comes to the challenges, then we have to look at the infrastructure. The majority of the students, at least that's our experience, don't have internet quality that's sufficient to follow a whole online lecture in high quality. Therefore, we record all our lectures, upload them afterwards, and provide them to the students so they can still learn and benefit from those afterwards. The positive or effects that we saw, or what has worked well, was the initial reaction. It was an overwhelming reaction, especially by colleagues in Europe, in United States, who told us that they are willing to support us also in addition to their work. So we're very grateful for that. And also the students' feedback. We realized, and therefore we actually recreated a whole curriculum based on the material that's used for teaching in Afghanistan. But also we tried to make sure that all students benefit from it. The problem for us is currently that we have in these classes medical students from year 1 to the final year. So it's a complete mixed up. And we don't have until now or currently enough resources and manpower to make sure that we have, for example, lectures for the first year, second year, and so on and so forth. So therefore, we were forced to restructure the curriculum into system-based teaching style, where we, for example, if you look at one disease, for example, lung, then we quickly have a look at the pathophysiology or normal anatomy, at the physiology, and then we come to the disease in order to make sure that everybody who's currently listening to that lecture benefits from that. And with a technical team of 5 people, there are 4 of them are based in Pakistan, and I'm in Switzerland. We're currently organizing the whole infrastructure, and and there we come slowly also to the challenges and what we're experiencing. On the one hand, we have 254 lectures, and 150 of them are already scheduled, and they're being given online. But as already mentioned, our long-term goal would be to somehow have enough faculty members to make sure that we can at least somehow, if we cannot give these lectures year-wise, for example, for first year, second year, and so on and so forth, but at least that we can somehow put the students in certain groups, for example, from 1 year to 3 and 3 to 6, in order to match their needs more precisely when it comes to giving these lectures. Um, this is so the main challenges we currently have are technical. For example, there's also one dimension in which I don't want to go too deep, but we always need to be careful not to endanger our colleagues who are in Afghanistan. Therefore, as you already mentioned, we are a non-profit, non-political organization or initiative, actually, and we are aware that it's quite delicate balance in which we are. So on the one hand, we have to make sure that we extend the program, but on the other hand, we've been told we have to behave in certain ways, and therefore it's difficult for us to, for example, approach organizations who would be willing to provide some kind of funding. So we are still in discussion when it comes to that, but in order not to endanger our colleagues on the ground, we are expanding the program slowly, step by step. And the main challenge we are currently facing is, on the one hand, to make sure that we increase the number of faculties, but on the other hand, that we somehow can organize this program in a more efficient way. For example, having an online learning platform, a web page to which the students have a password protected access. These are the things where we would probably need additional support, because all of us have a full-time job at a hospital, and we are doing this during the day, during our breaks, or in the evening on a weekend. So this is currently the main challenge we have. But when we give these lectures, when we talk to the students, it makes us hopeful that we can somehow help them, and maybe that the current rulers can actually have a close look at the program and maybe reflect on their policies and actions. Thank you very much. I'm very looking forward to questions and maybe also collaborations. Thank you very much.
My one side, I have a quick question. So currently, I'm assuming you guys are not using a system like Canvas for educational content management and scheduling classes and everything.
No, so we schedule it in in the following way. We have Google Sheets, so where all the lecturers have access to it, and we have specified topics and the dates. So they sign up with their names, and then our technical team individually contacts them, sends them the link to the online Zoom platform. The lecturers send us all the learning material, which we upload and provide to them. So we organize the material that we receive and provide it to the medical students so they can access it afterwards. And we also record the lectures. So it requires a lot of so-called manual labor, because there's one central sheet on which everybody has access, and the technical team is on a daily basis looking on them, and before the lecture starts, contacts and provides all the technical environment that's necessary. It's obvious, as you can hear, that's a very layman approach to it, but currently that's all we have. And as far as I know, when it comes, so we have regularly 400 to 500 students listening online to the lectures, and an additional 1,000 to 1,500 reviewing the lecture afterwards when we upload it. I'm not aware that anyone else is providing something like this. So just in order to sustain the program, we are just continuing with what we have in our hands.
So I would strongly urge you to look into learning management system, LMS, because this will make your life a lot easier. And I know you guys are fairly new, but it's free for nonprofit organization. Some of them are free just in general for everybody, but it would make your operations far more smoother. There's a few that are just free in general, but the other ones for nonprofit organization, they give them out for free. So please message me, and then I can give you more details. I've used them throughout the years myself, and most universities and educational facilities use them. It will make your life a lot more efficient and easier. Uh, just a quick recommendation, and we'll talk. So on another note, just a quick question: how are you guys doing in terms of funding? Is funding an issue? I would assume so, but uh, any challenges there?
We have no funding. We are paying everything out of our own pocket. And currently, we just want to make sure that we establish some kind of structure, as you already previously mentioned, something with tutor LMS, because what we are afraid of that if we approach organizations who give us funding, that can be used in order to shut down the program, or it might endanger our colleagues in Afghanistan. So therefore, we're currently paying everything ourselves. And as soon as the program gets more structured, more organized, and that we maybe to a degree where we probably don't need to rely too much on our colleagues on the ground, there we might take a careful step towards funding. But currently, we're paying everything ourselves.
Thank you. And in regards to taking this to the next level, right? So at the end of the day, not only are they learning, but they can get some sort of a certificate or of sort from it. Have you guys considered aligning or affiliating yourself with an educational entity, possibly Mora, to then where they can then provide this as a service, uh, as some sort of a certificate
Hamidisab, I
program?
cannot hear you. I don't know.
That would be a great idea. And for example, we have wrote some things that we want to work on it as soon as we have probably a few more people who are working and helping us. Because currently we are 3 or 4 people and managing a group of 2,500 students, and then plus 200 lecturers and the technical stuff. So it means we have very few capacities or resources to look at that. But this is one of the things we want to work on. This is one thing, and the second one would be also to work also with providers who have or produce medical education content, like Boards and Beyond, USMLE, and etc. That's something what we think about and that we have discussed a couple of times. But we are currently fighting for the survival of the program, because it takes all our time just to make sure that everything is available in its current very modular way that it is now. And therefore, one of the reasons why we also came here to see whether there are people who want to collaborate with us and also support us.
Thank you. That's great. And at the moment, I may have missed it because I was trying to communicate with Dr. Aziz. At the moment, so people who do go through this program that you guys have, what what would be what's your current expectation of results? You know, what do you expect them to do with this knowledge that they attain?
Our most foremost goal is to make sure that they don't give up, that they stay close to their books. And since we organized this curriculum modular wise, we provide them with materials afterwards. And we have a question session. So the main aim is currently is just to make sure that they are somehow close to their books, and that we have a channel of communication, because day by day more students talk to each other and they reach out, the groups grow. But in order to make a more organized program out of it, where they can have credits, official benefits from that, that's a stage I think that will come later. But that's the ultimate goal. Currently, as already mentioned, we are just establishing and trying to make sure that this somehow survives, because if we have this base of the students, then we can provide them more and better material. The initial point was to make them sure that we stay in touch with them.
Wonderful. Great. That's hopefully this platform will provide opportunities for your organization to potentially partner with others and make it more of a formal offering. And it could be a great service where kids can, or students, female students can learn from medical experts from around the world. I don't have any other questions, but thank you so much for that background information, and we're proud that you did this in such short frame. Michelle, did you have anything
Thank
to
you
say?
very much, Dr.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Definitely the hope would be to build connections and have collaborations so that we can work together during this time. Sister Adina, if you wanted to unmute yourself and introduce your organization, I'd like to hear from you. Thank you so much. Adina, are you able to unmute? Thank you.
Michelle, there may be a countrywide internet issue in Afghanistan. So I hope, so Shadina, can you hear us?
She can speak now. Thank you. So if you would like to introduce your organization, I would like to hear what are you guys working on? What services you guys have available as far as higher education? It would be great to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. As dear host mentioned, I'm Adina Ranjbar, Executive Director of OHSO, Wutuf Humanitarian Services Organization, and also I'm an architect and work with Aga Khan Cultural Services. And I want to speak about my organization, and also I want to thank from other speakers that speak about situation of Afghanistan and also opportunities for learning and challenge. Our organization work for women and girls empowerment and support in Afghanistan. After change of regime, everyone that want to leave Afghanistan, but our team stand here to take hand of every woman and girls in Afghanistan. OHSO main focus is to work for women and girls, especially young generation of Afghanistan. And we work in several provinces in Afghanistan. And also we work in three parts. First part is vocational training programs that they are tailoring projects, weaving courses, carpet weaving, rug weaving, and other supporting projects that families and women can stand in their economic and also our second part in our organization is health awareness for women, especially main health problems for Afghan women, because it is very important for women in Afghanistan. And the third part, and also the important part of our organization is a woman empowerment part. In this part, we work in three sections. First section is media section. In this media section is for awareness through social media, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and other social media. And our second section is social and public activities that we work for awareness through conferences, seminars, and also book and hijab exhibitions. That it is for all of people, and after change of regime we stop this part of our works. And also the third section of our organization, we work on courses for women empowerment, that these courses are provided weekly for women and girls. In this course, we teach for girls, and our main goal is to make their personality and speak about their psychological issues, leadership programs, relation with people and society, that how they can manage their relation with society and their family, with people in the society, and also skill development and some cultural programs, and also how to use their time usefully and work for their self. In this time, because of our country problems, our girls and women are jobless and they are in the homes. they can't do anything in society. We want to provide some 3 or 6 monthly courses that they are come every day in our courses and take these skills from us. But now schools are closed, universities are closed, but we can provide these courses in madaris and also in private courses. That it's easy for us because only place that women go and they have permission to go. It's madaris and also courses. Every work in our organization is voluntarily in the past, and we only need funding for our courses because in the past every teacher come only one day in a week and learn for our student, but now we want to manage these courses for 3 months or 6 months, and we have to pay for teachers because as other speaker speak about it, the economical issue is very critical in Afghanistan, and we have to support our teachers and those students and participants that they are needy, and they can't come to our courses because of economical issue and economical problems. And we have to pay for teachers because in this process, when we pay for teachers and they come and go, we can provide job opportunity for these young girls and women, and also we can provide some services like as I said about them courses and also leadership programs and etc. And all what we can do and what we want. We want our sisters and brothers to support us financially to represent our all of services to as much women as we can. And if you are really interested to help for women, we are here to work and have to we will work useful for this program for women. And also, as Dr. Aziz speak about electricity problems and also infrastructure problems in Afghanistan, our young generation in Afghanistan, especially girls that they are between the age of 13 up to 18 years old, they don't have access to mobile phone or computer or internet. In this case, we have to provide these courses for them in the classes, and they come and we teach for them. If and also families or don't have financially power to support their girls for enroll to online programs. If we want to provide services for young generation, we have to provide for them this kind of course. And also, at the end of, I want to say that our organization is also not a political or governmental NGO, and we only work for people in Afghanistan, and we only want to service for these people. And also, at the end, I want to really thank from everyone, from every host, that they are organized this kind of programs for women and girls, and they want to support our women in Afghanistan. At the end, if anyone have any question, they can ask me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adina John. Brother Twab, do you want to go to questions then, one round for our speakers before we get into the audience Q&A?
Sure. Did you want to start off? We can start off with Adina. Just while we have her. Adina, you mentioned that you guys are currently working on, in the winter, classes for students to ensure that their education continue. What are some of those classes that you guys are currently pursuing to offer?
Please repeat your question because I don't have your sound.
Sure. So I believe you mentioned you guys are working on 3 to 6 classes that you're currently offering in this winter time. Can you provide us a little bit detail on what those classes are? Adina, Sister Adina, we cannot hear you. Oh, okay.
I messaged her the question.
Wonderful. Sister Adina, can you hear us?
And our students come quickly in our courses, but our courses are the place of our courses are Madaris. We sign a contract with Madaris, and after that we take one of the classes of the Madaris, and we provide our courses on here. And our courses are
Understood.
only 1 day a week.
And what do you typically focus on teaching in that course?
We are teaching for them, as I said, our main focus are in how they can make their personality, something about how they can manage their time, and how they can make their self and use from their abilities, and find their abilities and talented. And also psychology issue, we have some lessons for this subjects, for psychology, for leadership, the skills of leadership, relation, how they make and manage their relation with people and society, and also skill development, and some cultural programs, and how they can use from their time.
Thank you so much. That's very useful, especially at this time and age, personal development and growth, and dealing with the challenges that they're going through. That can be very useful and effective. Thank you so much. And in terms of getting the right teachers to teach, funding, is that a challenge as well for you folks?
Yes. Now, the main challenge that we are faced with it is our funding for our teacher fees, and also the place that we take our classes, like Madaris. We have to pay some money, because they don't let us if we don't pay for them. And also we want to support some girls that they can't come to our courses because of financial problems.
So, Sardina, do you guys have a website if people wanted to help support this initiative? Is there a way people can actually support it by possibly supporting the salary of one of the teachers?
Yes, we have our website, but because of some problems, it's don't active now. But we will activate after 1 week, and I will share it with you.
And what is that website? If you
Website I will share.
Okay, okay,
Uh, with the name of our NGO, Utuf Humanitarian Services Organization, OHSO.
wonderful. And if anybody is keen on supporting Sister Adina's initiative, please follow her and reach out to her directly as well through Twitter, or if anybody would like, we can also facilitate the communication. Um, so I think we can move on to any other questions, Michelle. You have I have plenty of questions, but I'm sure you have your own. So feel free to ask the questions, and then we can go to Q&A.
Sure, that sounds great. I remember Victoria was talking about some collaborations with Mora University, and I think what we've heard from all speakers are two main issues: funding and collaboration, because they need the support of other organizations to be able to survive and offer these very minimal services. So I wanted to know from Victoria if she has any opinions on how we can facilitate these connections or funding, or how we can be support to each other during this time.
Thank you very much. That's really the core of our work at the moment, is to think about our action not just in isolation to one another, but really working together on many fronts to make sure that we can share resources and really enrich one another as well. I've already been in touch with some of the speakers, and I really hope that we will be able to enhance each other's work in the future. So what we're doing is that we are establishing a consortium of higher education actors in Afghanistan and for Afghanistan, because right now we can see that, interlocutors outside and inside, but having an action directly inside Afghanistan. And there are also other universities. Arizona State University is teaching in Afghanistan. The Qatar National Library is teaching in Afghanistan, etc. And many of those outside interlocutors are specifically working with women in Afghanistan. So what we're doing is on the 27th of February, we're going to meet together with all the different interlocutors that have been able to identify and that have been connected to us. And we're going to, number one, see if there is an appetite to create such a consortium. And then work on four, for the moment, I think we're going to work on four specific pillars. Number one, common advocacy for the education of women in Afghanistan, advocacy both, within, internationally, but also with diplomatic actors in Afghanistan, as well as for fundraising, because I can see that fundraising is an issue. And I think, if we show that together we're reaching X amount of women, we have the know-how, we have the best practices, we all have one piece of the puzzle, then we can obtain, I think, significant funding. Then work on logistics towards addressing connectivity issues, both in terms of hardware, but also in terms of software. We see that some websites have already been banned in Afghanistan. What can we do to actually, keep connectivity should such a ban occur? And there are many ways that we can work on this together. I heard earlier, cybersecurity being mentioned. Not only we're teaching cybersecurity at the UAF, but we're also developing a graduate program, cybersecurity program for our women alumni based in Afghanistan, trying to and finding some work not in Afghanistan but with organizations within the region. All of these can be worked on and with. A third will be bridging our resources and services. We can see already that some of us are more leaning towards skills to enter university, while others, looking at graduate education. How can we connect each other and also connect our learners to our different initiatives? And the fourth one is going to be recognition and certification. I heard Dr. Maiwan talking about this earlier. So Pearson Education is also going to be at the table to start thinking of how they can provide, as the number one certifier in the world for both secondary and now getting into tertiary education, how can they help providing this recognition for all the students studying in dire conditions at the moment through WhatsApp groups, etc., and through a more structured learning management system, how to provide them with certification. That's going to be a worldwide currency, maybe not recognized by the current Ministry of Higher Education, but definitely worldwide. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I'm really sorry, Dr. Amir. I know you've had connectivity issues, but if you can hear me, I would like to give you the opportunity to finish your thoughts, if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, Michelle.
Great. I'm sorry you got disconnected before. Please continue.
Hello?
Yes, we can all hear you. If you wanted to continue, you got cut off earlier because your internet dropped.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, following my previous, uh, I think I've always said that taking the ground realities in Afghanistan into consideration, for all Afghan problems, we have to find Afghan solutions. And one of those solutions that I was thinking of all the time was educating Afghan women in Afghani ways, by Afghan women, by Afghan institutions, which is a friendly way and culturally accepted way of educating women. So this women by women concept then was one of the solutions that I thought of, so that we can make women institutions in all Afghan provinces, in all 34 provinces of Afghanistan, in very remote areas. We could bring this solution and find female teachers to educate the women in the communities and in all the provinces and districts of Afghanistan. In the meantime, we could use the online platform, though it is not a 100% solution, but 30-40% solution it can be the tele-education, so that we can reach all the far villages and districts of Afghanistan, and every families with a satellite and a solar power facility, where we can set an LCD in a house in a very far village of Afghanistan, and then invite the girls and women of that particular village to that room or that house, and have the classes for them. So I think Mora Educational Complex is one of those solutions. Unfortunately, the current government is a very unpredicted concept, and we didn't know that such situation will come. That even women only educational centers will be having challenges. But this Afghan solution to Afghan problem concept, I would rather invite the attention of all the international community and all the stakeholders to think about it. That how we can empower educating Afghan girls by Afghan women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aziz. That's a very profound statement, and I believe if we do focus on localizing solutions for um, any any group, any people, it'll go
I
much
cannot
longer.
hear you. Can anybody hears me?
Dr. Aziz, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
In addition, Dr. Aziz, are you able to hear me now? Michelle, maybe he's not able to hear me. If you can ask him uh, his financial challenges that they may be facing, because it's an all-girls school, and if the girls' school closes, and it's a private institution, so what happens? How can they financially support themselves? They would have to shut down, I would assume.
Dr. Amir, are you able to hear me? I
I
think we would
cannot
like
hear
to
the room,
hear.
unfortunately.
Let me message you the question. Okay.
While we're waiting for Dr. Aziz, I'm not sure, Michelle, if you've already sent them the question. Okay, yeah, I see it.
Yes, I have. But in the meantime, then I think I'd like to go to Zora and also hear from her. Zora is a board member at ASIF, and she graduated from Harvard University and works in educational research. As far as the topic of higher education opportunities for women, if we can go to Zora John, and then we can go back to Dr. Aziz if he's able to fix his internet issues. Zora, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. Thank you for giving me the mic and space to speak. Thank you, Michelle and Tawab and everyone else. I know Gulmakai was also involved in the process of organizing the space. Um, I wanted to just make a few remarks as an education researcher and in light of education policymaking. And also thank you to all the panelists. I think you've raised some really critical issues as you are working towards solutions right now. And it's kind of changed some of the ways I've been thinking about what is viable and what is not. But I'll get back to that. I think one thing that we all agree on is that as we consider alternative opportunities, and in some cases, these are not necessarily alternative opportunities, but opportunities that will remain even after the political issues are resolved. But as we consider these opportunities, I think we have to continue to push for countrywide policy solutions at the national level, because ultimately that's the most sustainable solution, and it will ensure that the education system doesn't entirely fall apart. And as we know, with these alternative opportunities that require so many additional resources, they're often available to people, to the more privileged segments of society, and more underprivileged, marginalized children in rural areas, in high poverty areas are just not going to have access. Like, and no matter how much we try, it's going to be incredibly difficult to extend some of these services outside of certain parts of the country, particularly the cities. So I think number one, and I believe everyone's in agreement that we have to continue to push um, for bigger national solutions to, and that the current ban is it's going to cause, the longer it lasts, it's just going to cause deeper issues that are going to be harder to reverse. As I was considering, the past few months, people have been talking about alternative opportunities, and I thought of three things that I think are important when we think about supporting these opportunities, when we think of what is available and how we can assess them. I think at the very top of the list is quality. We need to make sure that whatever sort of opportunities are available, that students are learning, and that they're learning relevant information that's going to help them prepare for their future. Number two is sustainability. So long-term solutions, and I know to some extent that's really challenging, but we do have it's an important criteria, because all these disruptions in a young person's lives add up, and it's going to be much more difficult, I think, to continue, as Dr. Maiwan said, if they're very short-term solutions. And I know these organizations are continuing to develop, and they're thinking about sustainability. And I also don't want to undermine the importance of certain opportunities that we need right now, especially for mental health issues, for mental health reasons. And they might not necessarily be sustainable in the long run, or they might not be necessary when we do have a long-term solution. So I think that's an important caveat. And number three, as Professor Victoria spoke about, recognition, making sure that what they're learning right now, and that this learning is recognized, and that they can take their certificates somewhere. If they're leaving Afghanistan, or even within the country, hopefully there's an opportunity to actually make use of their learning. And obviously that's also incredibly challenging with the current circumstances. And I don't know if I need to say any of this. I think by now most of us know that there are long-term repercussions for the closure of schools and universities for girls and women. We see professors leaving, teachers leaving the country. thousands of private institutions have closed already. And on top of that, we also see families and students who are leaving or who are being displaced. And again, the most marginalized children are affected even more by these bans. And as I was listening to the speakers, I tried to listen to, okay, how can we support some of these organizations? And I just picked up some points here that I wanted to share. One is the importance of just basic resources that come through funding. So internet, laptops, phones, online learning platforms. These are things that we can, as people outside of the country, that we can help with, right? And I hope that you follow the individuals who spoke about what they're doing in Afghanistan or for Afghans, and if you have if you want to support them, get in touch with them and see how you can fund some of the things that some of the resources that they need in order to continue their work and to develop their work. The other thing is, I think the importance of expertise. What Dr. Maiwand is doing is incredible. That it's a very small, like bottom down solution of doctors, Afghan doctors coming together to just provide something, to provide hope, really. And hope is invaluable to students in this really difficult time. So I think others, similarly, if you have certain skills, you might consider how you can collaborate with these institutions or with other individuals to provide additional opportunities. In addition to that, I thought, one of the things that I'm hearing somewhat implicitly is the importance of continued work, continued discussion, dialogue with the national authorities or with at least diplomatic representatives, whether they're from Europe or America. And Dr. Maiwand mentioned a very important point, that we do have to consider the safety of Afghans who are still in the country as we do this work. And I think the way, if we're thinking from the lens of safety, it's difficult to ensure safety if you're working entirely outside of a national system. And I know, again, this is a really challenging issue, and it can be incredibly frustrating to work with some of the individuals who are the de facto leaders of the country right now. However, especially for security reasons, for the safety reasons of students, teachers, I think it's really important to continue to have these dialogues. And I think recently we saw there's a little bit of there's tension that's surfacing, and hopefully that's a positive sign, as long as we have some productive solutions. And finally, Dr. Aziz, unfortunately, I think is no longer here, but I wanted to just emphasize what he said about Afghan solutions to Afghan problems, and especially Afghan women-led solutions, I think, are really critical at this point. And I think we can all consider different ways that we can support these women, whether it's Adina and her organization, or the many other women who are involved in trying to think creatively, trying to find the spaces within the society, within the culture, to push for solutions. So thank you, everyone, for sharing. And I think you've given me a lot of ideas. You've shown how complex this work is, and just how thoughtful you've been in trying to find some way out, or find some hope within this situation. Yeah, I'll listen more, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. John. Those were great points. It's always great to hear from you. I think we're getting ready to get into audience question and answer. So please send in your requests if you had a comment on the topic, or if you wanted to ask one of the speakers a question. I think we can go to Bashir first.
Well, Michelle, thank you very much, and hello everyone. And I appreciate all of you to be a part of very important topic. And Zohra talked all about what I wish to say. And one, I would like to ask a question. Maybe someone addressed or applied first. That if all those who are sitting abroad, we are sitting in the different countries, for example, if we find an opportunity, how we can provide that opportunity, the Afghan girls or a woman, they come out from the Afghanistan. Is it possible or not? And how uh, we can contribute, especially those who are sitting and make as much as possible we can uh, convince the international community to pressurize the Afghan government to what you decided, and you cannot what I would like to say, you cannot exclude the very large part of the woman from the the your basic right of that is the education. So this is disappointing and a very seriously for me is it's the heart bleeding when I listen that they cannot get education. It's the basic right of every woman to get education. So how if we get an opportunity for scholarship and others, so is it possible they come out of their Afghanistan? So I would like to know that. Thank you. Over.
Bashir said, I'm not sure I understood your question. Well, Michelle, did anybody else catch his question?
I think he was looking for two answers. One was as far as people who wanted opportunities for education, how can they get out? And then those who are inside the country, is there anything that the international community can do to pressurize and allow those opportunities? So I think those were the two questions. If one of the speakers wanted to um, answer, feel free to put your hand up if anyone had an answer for that or a comment. Zorajan, was there anything that you wanted to comment regarding that question, or should we see if there are any more questions?
I didn't quite get the question either. I think the sound was low for me. I think one question was, is it possible for all the girls to leave the country? And it's absolutely not. I think that's why everyone here so far has emphasized the importance of national level solutions.
So for those who did make speaker requests earlier, we have opened up the Q&A session, so feel free to uh, make the request again, and we can field your questions to the speakers. While we're waiting, I did wanted to make a quick comment. There's a famous saying that if you educate a man, you've taught one person, but if you've educated a female, you've educated an entire family. And this is far truer for societies like Afghanistan, where the mother plays such a critical role in the upbringing of children. And there's so many research that has shown that an educated mother has such a profound impact on the kids and how much how they tend to be far more educated as well. I mean, the list goes on, their upbringing in every way you could possibly imagine. So I really do hope that this can be behind us in the next few months and the education facilities will be reopened quickly. Um, that being said, I did wanted to ask a question to Dr. Aziz, but it looks like he's no longer here. Now, his university being all female, uh, and the environment from those who've actually visited is they think the environment is one of the best environments for female to really feel secure and learn and study. Um, the challenge with them is that it's a private institution, so they're completely fee-based. And now that, unlike other universities that at least have males that they can teach to, they will completely be, they'll completely have to close down if they're not allowed to teach females. So it's a, uh, for all practical purposes, it behooves me as to why they would be shut down or they were shut down. Um, just a couple of quick tidbits from my side. Uh, Mr. Bahir is also here. Obaidullah, if you'd like to add some comments, please request the mic. We'd love to hear from you.
I just wanted to add something to those comments as well while Abaidullah gets the mic. I think all the organizations and individuals who have spoken today, they're going to be in Afghanistan in the long run. This is not necessarily, even when schools open up, which they have to, like there's really no alternative. Schools and universities must open up for girls and women. There's still going to be a need for private organizations, for different types of opportunities, just because of the lack of state capacity. And in fact, even during the 20 years of the war and billions of dollars coming into the economy, into the government system, there were still many alternative opportunities there, just because the state was still unable to meet the demand for education. And so I hope that gives us some perspective that, if you decide to support one of these individuals, you are supporting something that's going to have a long-term impact in Afghanistan. They're not going to be obsolete when, hopefully in March schools reopen. In fact, one of the when it comes to primary education, one of the largest opportunities in Afghanistan is what we call community-based education, and these are run by NGOs. They are part of the national education system in that they teach the national curriculum. Teachers are registered. Their education is it's official, and students can move up the education system when they graduate or when they finish. They don't really graduate, they finish the community-based schools. And so even in the long run, when it comes to countries like Afghanistan, as well as just in general, low-income countries, there will always be, for the foreseeable future, a need for different actors to provide services.
Thank you, Zora. That's informative, insightful information. Okay, we finally got Bahir. Assalamu alaikum, Bahir Sahib. Thank you for joining. You have the mic. We'd be grateful to hear from you.
Alaikum assalam. Thank you everyone for being here. I was listening in on the conversation, and this is a very timely space with a very esteemed panel, and it's always great to see so many female speakers discuss a very important topic to Afghanistan. I just again, like the people who are involved in the education industry would have more specific information to provide and topics to discuss. I just wanted to highlight an issue that hopefully could help us get over the impasse, because honestly, like whatever alternatives we keep talking about, they are alternatives and they are makeshift. For example, There was Taliban officials who showed up at one of the secret schools a few days ago before the teachers had come and gathered information from the students. Now there is an important decision to be made as to whether this was a security concern or whether they should close doors. Um, but good thing is we don't have a precedent of at least not one that I or most of the secret schools are aware of raids happening on these secret schools. So that's sort of reassuring, but we have to also recognize that this state of limbo or this state of gray legality is problematic, because we do understand that local officials are turning a blind eye to these projects, but at some point there will be someone who does crack down on them, as long as the law permits them to do so. So we have to be mindful of that limitation. So the goal should be, yes, while we in parallel keep carrying forward such alternative projects, we have to keep working to break the impasse and move forward on the education issue. Now that leads us to two major points of concern. One is obviously the behavior of the sovereign of the Taliban, who in this case is represented by the Emir. And this is a classical return to, so there's a lot of literature about the difference between tyrannies and dictatorships, because dictatorships were actually a political phenomena used by the Romans in times of emergency. So they would give specific powers to one person who would be able to take decisions, but it was always a sunset clause. It was always limited by time, and they would eventually replenish their power and be held accountable. So legally, it also involves a habeas corpus. So at the end of the day, anyone that they trialed or convicted, it would stand even if it didn't go through the proper legal channels. But that being said, like the thing that set it apart from tyrannies is that it wasn't a one person rule till eternity, and that person isn't the ultimate decision maker. Right now, we have a system where there isn't no legal constitution. I mean, at the end of the day, you have nothing to refer to when it comes to your laws, to your terminologies, to your legal frameworks. So that's one issue. And then at the end of the day, the Amir isolating himself to such an extent where if he refuses to meet even scholars from Qatar, that presents one issue, and that is for the Taliban to resolve internally. I did discuss this even yesterday on a live interview where I said even if they do not want to disobey their emir, there has to be a conversation of division of powers, and the emir maybe can take a spiritual role like he did initially when the Taliban came to power, and everyone else then has some sense of cost benefit analysis or manafi' and mafasid that dictate the way that they take forward policies. So one is that, and that's the internal dynamics of the Taliban. With regards to the international community, and especially us, the civil society of Afghanistan, and civil society, unfortunately, has been reduced to the concept of NGOs alone, which shouldn't be the case. We should be looking at civil society as larger civil actors, including activists and academics and intellectuals. What these two parties should do separately, because they don't represent the same agenda or the same thinking, but the impasse can be broken when we make sure that those who are internationally making policies get to hear our voices and base their policies on correct information or relevant information, rather than from people who have agendas and want to sell them a specific narrative. So we have to be active in that. But with the international community, I think one of the major failures in the past 1.5 years is we've every side has been imposing their direction of engagement on the other. Meaning, the Taliban, whenever they come to the negotiating table, their first point of contention is recognition. And the international community feels like it is 100 feet away from that point, and it starts with fundamental human rights, and we eventually get nowhere. So, one way of breaking this when it comes to negotiations or the art of negotiations is Um, Sometimes to approach the issue from the other person's perspective. And this is a conversation I've had with international policymakers. And I say, okay, if the Taliban want recognition, then talk to them about recognition. And the United States, for example, is currently holding the floodgates of recognition or diplomatic missions opening in Afghanistan. If the United States wasn't so adamant on these missions not resuming, a lot of them would have. So what conversations behind closed doors can be micro ambitious. You do not need to imagine the carrot or the stick as like one complete entity. It can be broken down to smaller pieces. So cube shaped carrots is a very good analogy. So you turn around to the Taliban and you say, well, if you're going to do this small task for us, here are the small rewards that we can give. And recognition can be broken down into smaller tangible giveaways that are exchanged. So as long as we don't break down the leverages that the international community has, but there's also a moral question involved here, like when do you do that? A lot of times the best engagement has happened at the worst of times. And I think that is horrible because that conditions the Taliban into bad behavior, that rewards bad behavior. So the international community has to be mindful of that. So in essence, just to wrap up, I know there are a lot of issues and our trajectory is towards the worst because we heard some of the Taliban officials say that schools were going to open up end of March. I've sat with Taliban officials who've said that to us as well, but I had sworn then, and I'm willing to repeat that now, that the schools aren't going to open up for girls. You already saw decrees and directives to institutions saying that women are not going to return to universities or schools. And that means that they're not budging on this policy. But the light at the end of the tunnel is, like I've said before, that these aren't the Taliban of before, not comparing to a 1.0 or a 2.0, but there are people within the Taliban. And we've already seen in remarks from very high ranking officials that show displeasure at these policies. So that's a very prominent and good change compared to the 90s, but also that the Afghans aren't the same Afghans. So as long as we keep pushing back and our civil disobedience or our displeasure with these policies do not have to be protests on the streets, but we can lay down groundwork where, for example, 25 universities refusing to open their doors is a very good means of pressure on the Taliban to make them realize that they're hurting Afghans with their policies. If more lecturers, more school teachers, if we can find a way to have every male parent walk their daughters to their schools on the first day of school, that in itself is very symbolic, is very powerful. So we need to figure out more and more ways of showing dissent in a constructive manner where we do not seem as a direct opposition or someone who is trying to undermine the regime, but someone who is making a demand for a very Afghan and Islamic right. We will go forward. I know it feels very hopeless, but it has felt like this in every struggle around the world. Civil rights movements do not come to be because circumstances are so wonderful. They come because circumstances are that bad. And we should be mindful of that, and we should keep our eyes on the prize. We should not lose hope, and everything else will sort itself out. If the Taliban imagine to rule for a longer period of time, they will have to give in to the people of Afghanistan. They will have to listen to them because you can only rule through coercive force for so long. So I'm sorry if there are no like very strong, powerful messages of hope there, but I think if you look closer, there is hope to find. And I just wanted to give that message out. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Bahir said. That's that's. I think we all agree with your recommendation and approach, and I do think it's important that people don't forget about this and continue the activities to ensure that schools do open or women's education do open. Um, in one of the most profound verses of the Quran in Surah Zumar, ayah number 9, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. In a nutshell, if you read the entire Quran, throughout the Quran, it differentiates between humans not on the basis of race, ethnicity, wealth, power, or anything of that matter. It differentiates people on the basis of piety in certain verses, but in this specific verse that I mentioned, on the basis of knowledge, where God says, "Are those who know equal to those who don't know?" And this is such a powerful statement because the emphasis, the foundation is laid down on the basis of knowledge, and it's such a critical part of our faith, our historical culture. We've had so many scholars, female scholars of the past, and I do believe that also in relations to the points you made, what needs to be also really stressed and continuously pushed is the Islamic position on women's education, because there is nothing that you will find in Islam that would allow you to ban women's education. And in fact, the reverse is true, where Islam pushes for female education in so many ways. And in dealing with the Taliban, this needs to be part of the discussion continuously. And I hope that this can this can waken more people up, and change some of the cultural mindsets that I believe exists. Sorry, let's. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to come up. If anybody wants to make a comment, be more than happy to hear from you. Michelle, if you have any thoughts, feel free to jump in.
Not at the moment. If we wanted to go to anyone if they had any closing statements, if Dr. Ahmad Zai wanted to, do you have any final comments before we see if there are any more questions?
Okay, somebody requested the mic. I think it's Brother John Muhammad. John Muhammad, please feel free to open up your mic and ask your question.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, host and your respective guest. My question would be, you all are very well aware that banning the female education was not something has been introduced or was part of policy now. When Mullah Muhammad Umar was the leader of Taliban, and under his 5 years rules, he was he was pushing for not having female education even under his 5 years rule. Why you think they would change that policy or that type of predicament now? Do you think the Western government pressures or leverage of legitimizing their regime or recognition of their regime would make them change their mind now, when the similar economic political pressures were made previously? Because banning female education is part of their Sharia law, part of their dogma. How could you convince them changing that type of policy shift? It would discredit them if they did that, because it would make them somehow not having a similar imarat which they had at the Mullah Umar's time. What would make them change? Anybody who would like to answer it, I would really like to hear.
But here's I was going to go to you anyway, so feel free to field that question.
Thank you. And Zohra and Mewansep, please feel free to jump in. I just want to give a very short answer. Look, there is an opening here, and the fact that the Taliban don't have a central manifesto between them shows you that there is no letter of the law. Even this dogma that you point towards is not something that is written, and especially if you look at Maulana Haqqani's book on how he perceives this issue, he also gives an opening of being understanding towards it and understanding the necessity for it. So yes, they have precedent, but precedent can go either way. One of the ways that a lot of internationals argued with the Taliban for reopening at least medical education for girls, and by the way, there are women still working in a lot of NGO sectors and getting trained in certain sectors. It's just that the Taliban aren't announcing it. Is because there is no central document between them. So it's anyone's interpretation, which is great for reform, because if a new Taliban leader emerges and they get to do things differently, there is no central document that would hold them to a specific attitude, is just what I want to point towards. So the fact that so many leaders are already speaking out against it shows you that it's not inherent to the movement to ban women from education or from public life.
Thank you very much. I actually had a question for Bahir as well. I know he mentioned civil disobedience, and I wanted to know if there are any other options. I have heard of the idea of walking girls above seventh grade to school, whether they're able to go or not, just up to the gate and back. But I find that a bit problematic only because things are so unpredictable. I mean, are we putting kids in harm's way? Are there other options?
Um, Look, it's tricky because I mean, I struggle with these questions, and the fact that there is always going to be a cost to anything and everything that you do. Yet, I would think that walking girls to their school doors is not going to be that problematic, because you have to understand that even in Islamic history, there have been armies who have raised the Quran while going to the battlefield to stop their opponents from engaging in specific reactions. There is the idea of the mothers of the piazza, which is a huge example of feminist peace, where the mothers came out to question the dictator about where their children were or what the system was going towards. So I think that having the girls there is sort of an added layer of safety rather than a cause for concern. But there are other options, and everything comes at a price. So, for example, let's say if a civil disobedience where non-essential doctors boycott, where lectures boycott, where school teachers boycott. So necessarily, then you are depriving a few 100,000 patients and students of education and healthcare. Just to prove a point to the Taliban and push them into realizing that the system has shut down and they have to give in to the people. Demonstrations have their own risk. And then you have the other extreme measures, which is people picking up guns and fighting. So I think that aqall dararain is a good logic to move towards, which is what is the least bad option. And I think right now, algorithmically speaking, there's an algorithm problem that's called the NP complete problems, which are problems in computer science that don't have a perfect solution to them. So you have to pick the Occam's razor, which is the best fit that almost gets the job done or gets you close to the job being done. So, but yeah, these conversations are important, and we need to have a larger base of civil society that sits down and has this conversation about what are the possible options, what are the costs of those options, what is the best way we can move forward. But we need to start thinking about those things, which is why I flagged a few off the top of my head. But these aren't perfect solutions, and I'm willing to hear more, but we all need to sit down and brainstorm something that is useful, is Afghan, is done from within Afghanistan, rather it looking like just another Western conspiracy, because the Taliban are becoming harsher, and unless we push back now, the room to do anything is just closing further and shrinking further and further.